So what I'm saying is, when you have your first edge that you want to do, like something's really kind of in rough shape, you take this side of this stone, and then you hold it on there, and you just run it across there for about a minute, and you rough it up, and you'll see the texture of this changes. And then you put your tool on there, and you do your first grind, and then you switch to the smooth side, and you do the same thing, and you smooth it back out again, and that's your finish. And then once you're done with that, you'll move to this, but we'll cover that later. So that's what this is for, and that's how you change the roughness and the gradation of the stone.
And that you do freehand.
Yeah, that you just do freehand. I mean, you don't want to come in. You don't want to come in and be like, right? You want to try to keep it level and do just along here. But like you said, this is where one of the ways that it's going to get messed up is people doing this and kind of like putting more pressure there or having a slight angle on it in the camber. It's just, but you have the same thing from.
Do you use that often, or do you
all the time?
Oh, okay.
All the time. Yeah.
So like every blade, you like make it rough.
Or do you usually like rough all your blades, then make it fine, then
Yeah,
finally?
I'll do that. Like if I have an order coming in, or if I'm doing some blades, I'll do. I actually sometimes don't even use that anymore. I use a different tool on my rough one, and then I do the smooth. So, but yeah, it's because I've got a bunch of different stuff. But yeah, you do all your primary sharpening, and then you smooth it out. So that is kind of like the entry to this, and how you set it up for use there. This is the next important tool, and this is, so you have the measurements on this side, 160 down to 250, and that is, you can see now it's at 250 on the, and that will move itself up as you eat away at the stone. And at some point, the other nice thing, or the other reason to have the T7 and T8 versus another one, I think the T3, this is an 8-inch stone, I believe, and the T3 is a 6-inch stone. It gives a little bit more of a flat grind. You're not getting as much camber to the actual edge, because what you're in contact, your tangent is a little bit less curved. So as this moves down, though, and you get to maybe like here, then it's going to be less of a. So we'll watch that, and at some point just replace the wheel. But I've had mine for several years, and I'm probably down to like 230.
Wow.
So it's not. I mean, if you're like sharpening professionally every day, mine's a side business, so it's not a thing. But like, if you're doing it all the time, then you might go through one of those once a year, I think. But then this is how you measure. You make sure that this one. So you make sure that this pointer is pointed to the same thing as here, because as you move along and it gets smaller, that's going to change the angle of how that is. So that's the first. Just make sure you're on that. I guess it's a 10-inch wheel. The other one's less. Then you find your blade. Let's get a chisel.
Presumably that's just millimeters of diameter?
Yeah. And now you get a chisel, or whatever it is that you want to sharpen, and you figure out what angle it's at right now. And that's what these are for. So you can see it's not a 60-degree angle, but you might come down and, it looks like we're about 22 and a half. That's where I think where you probably wanted to be. Is that where you said it?
I engraved the angle in the back, in case I do in the back of the blade.
That is also a good practice.
So I figured
25 degree. Okay.
the next time someone came around instead of figuring it out.
Yeah,
Yeah, they're.
it's good practice.
Yeah. Okay. So that is good. Or putting a piece of tape around the edge. There's some Tormek sells some things. There is.
And you want it up against this little ledge here?
Yeah. Then the other thing you can do as a prep is take a little dry erase marker and just run it right along the edge here, like that. And then that way you'll also know if you're getting full contact once you're on there, because it will all, you'll get even contact, it'll all be away coming out otherwise. If you're not getting enough, you'll see once you do this how that will help you it should erase the whole thing. But if you're not getting, if it's too high of an angle, it'll leave a little bit at the front. If you're getting too low of an angle, it'll leave a little bit in the back. So you want it to be such that the whole thing is being taken away from it. Yeah. I'm moving through a lot of stuff. Questions? Okay. Let me have, can you just throw me one of the chef's knives or any of the knives? These are a little bit easier to work with, to start with. So they're easier to understand.
I grinded away half of a knife already.
Yeah.
Before we did the chisel, which was.
Well, yeah. So this has the adjustment. You for something this size, you could use the long one. Most of it, you can also use the short one. Really, the long one is when you have. There should be a fillet knife somewhere in there. If you have a fillet knife or something that's more bendable.
This sort of thing from like meats.
No, that's a different. It's all right.
This guy.
If you have something. Yeah, that one. So this one is not, well, this is technically a boning knife, but a fillet knife has a little more bend to it, like that. So you'd want to have this is going to be stiff along the whole thing and keep it more in place. But for this, even up to this size or a 9-inch knife, you can use this or that, that's fine. And again, this is where having the distance between the blade you're sharpening and the edge of this, which is where the tool rests, that is actually what determines the angle. So what you do is you have it on here. And you put this on there. Can you hand me you do this, and then that, and you adjust this or there until this part right there lays flat on the surface that you're wanting to cut.
Sorry, it should lay flat on the body of the knife or on the tip? On the tip.
On the body of the knife. So
Okay.
that's fine right there. So yeah, why don't you guys come around and see what I'm saying. So when you look at this here, for a 25-degree angle, that is not where you want it because it's too high. You really want it to come back. And you can adjust, you can see as you roll along, it's going to have
flat on it.
Yeah, so you can adjust it by saying, okay, so where is it going to be flat? Here, that's where it's flat.
Okay.
And then you can decide, have I moved it enough that I want to pull this out by using either that, or you can also adjust here. So this is also just like a micro adjustment tool on that.
Does that have a lock pin or anything so you don't accidentally?
No, but it's pretty set.
Okay.
But then, like I said, the distance. So if you set this up for, let's say, 20-degree angle, and the distance from here to the blade that you're sharpening is 3.5 inches. It doesn't matter what you put in there, as long as that distance is 3.5 inches, it's going to be the same angle, right? Because that's just how it works. So you can use various different knives, and if you just know that the gap, if you put it up here and the gap here is a certain distance, you can hold a little ruler up to it and then feel confident that you're at the right spot. And you might want to come in and test it and do it that and that. But for the most part, when you're sharpening, 1 angle or 1 degree or 2 degrees is actually not good. What you want is consistency. And so as long as you're consistent along that, it's going to be fine. So that's that. Yeah, so now we're going to set up. Most kitchen knives, there's a lot of thoughts and different ways to think about the angles of sharpening, and chisels have certain angles, and everything has an angle. That's actually it all has angles. Like a Japanese knife. So there's a Japanese. What's the name of that one? It's Daba, I think. In there. No, not. It's all right. That one, I sharpen that down to a 15-degree angle. Some of them may take down to a 13-degree angle. If you're using a knife like a cleaver to cut big root vegetables, you're going to want to add like a 23, 25-degree angle because it's just going to be, you're putting more metal behind the edge, so as you're pressing down to cut something that's harder, it's going to be less likely to deform.
That's a total angle, right? So each side is actually half of that,
No, that's going to be...
or each side.
That's each side.
Each side,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So, yeah, and then like axes can go up to 40, 45 degrees. You can have just a variety of different things. But in your chisels, I can't remember. I have a whole reference book. That's what. So we can solve that if you wanted to. German knives are softer steel, so you'd want them to be around 20 to 23 degrees. This one I'll just set up as a 20 degree and do it as an example. So it's a little far there. That is flat to the edge. So I'm going to just kind of move that in. I probably could have moved this out some. Make sure it's locked down. Now so I'm doing it on, this is another setup thing. I'm doing it here, and this is going to rotate the wheel away from me, right? You can also have it set up here and have it rotating towards.
And that's why you put it in the vertical position.
And that's in a vertical position. The setup, the angle measurement's the same. You put it on there, you measure to that. It's really a matter of preference. I could look it up. I think when you're having it in this direction like that, it eats away faster. It takes away more metal.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And because you're grinding towards the blade. The other thing that you can't do is when you're like this, you're going to get what's called a wire edge. The wire edge is where the metal kind of bends over. So once you've actually hit the edge and sharpened there, you can run your finger along there and you'll feel a wire edge and you're done. Like once you've got the wire edge, that's it. You flip it over and do the other side. If you're doing it from a vertical position, you're not going to get the wire edge. So you're just going to have to rely on. So this is one way to do it. So you put it on and you move all the way across, maintaining contact the whole time.
You're pushing down.
Somewhat, yeah. As long as you're hearing contact and grinding, and then you can come along. You can feel, run your hand along your thumb along there. You can feel creating the wire edge there.
Yeah.
Did it change when you got to the tip where it's a little bit different distance? You just have to kind of rotate with it.
On some, like if you have a
but you
really
feel like a
deep
very-
chef's knife, you have to kind of like both lift up and back. So,
It's
but
just like trying to keep even contact more or less.
yeah,
I guess you get a slightly different angle on that part of the blade, but you just ignore it.
yeah. I mean, again, like it's as long as you kind of have the same. But yeah, the tip of the knife is not an easy thing to do, especially if it's got a big bevel.
But even with this one, if it has just a slight curve to it, it's fine. You just leave everything even.
Yeah, you just don't worry about it.
Okay.
Because the distance between here and here may be like a third of a degree.
Sure. So it's gonna be okay. It's better just
If you're doing a
you're getting a more inaccuracy by moving it.
Now, if you're doing a planer blade, or if you're doing those, then you need to have like solid. It needs to be actually totally flat, very square, perpendicular to both these edges.
But the blade itself is already starting flat, so it's a lot
Blade's already
easier.
starting flat, and you come along here and just go that way. So, and that's where it's. These are actually difficult to do in planer blades. I don't do planer blades for the same reason I don't do drills, because a big planer blade, the sharpening, when I've looked into them, you can spend like 3 or 4 hours on that planer blade, just because they're tough to do.
Are you supposed to grind the front and the back of plated blades, or just the front?
Yeah. Oh, that's I'll get to that. But we'll later come back. Yeah. So you created the wire edge on that side. You don't need much. Come along. You do. Not totally up there. So that is a problem. You have 2 adjustments here. You do that one first, and that tightens there, and then it basically pushes it down even further on that one, and it just locks it in. So, these, let me see. there's another knife over there. This one. If you have a choice, if you're buying yourself knives at some point, of course you have someone, you're giving guidance to someone to buy a knife, and you want to be able to sharpen them easily and by yourself, this very common German Bolster, which is supposed to be comfortable for the hand, is terrible for sharpening, because you come in here and you can't go all the way across. You're done. Like, that's it. And so you have to kind of like, basically, once you come to that, you lift up a little bit and then bring it back, so you're only making contact, because what you want is, it's time under contact, right, with the stone. So if you come through and do this one, and start here and go all the way across, and then stop there, this has had almost no contact compared to these bits there. So this type of a knife that has no bolster there that you can take all the way across, like a chisel or a planer, it's just much easier to work with. If you have a bolster like that and you want to deal with it, take it over here and just take it down. That's what I do.
Yep. John sharpened my knives, and he's like, "Can I grind off your bolster?" And I was like, "Sure."
Yeah, and because what happens is eventually, if you come down and you do this, and you'll see that you'll have, if you're really careful, like if you're chiffonading an herb, right, and if this actually matters to you, you'll have a gap right there because the bolster will be higher than the rest of the knife, and then you're actually not cutting on the full cutting surface. So now we've done that. We've gone back and forth here. We've gotten the wire edge on both sides. Great. We smooth it out using that tool. We do the same thing, back and forth, get the wire edge, pull it out.
So pretty much for most knives, you're using that tool and adjusting the sharpness of the stone.
You're adjusting the grit on the stone.
Grit, that's what I mean,
of the
sharpness,
stone. Yeah,
yeah.
and you're using which tool?
The
Stone.
The stone.
Yeah, that stone, right.
Right.
Yeah, and there's only a rough side and a smooth side.
Right.
So you do, and then you can do all the other ones and then come back. So now you're done with that. I won't use too much of this because I don't need to. This is a honing compound. And did you already put machine oil on this?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So this is a honing compound. It basically is just a very, very fine grit lotion almost that you put on here, and then you just take this along.
You don't use a guide for this?
You can, but it's just a feel thing. You really can't ruin a knife on this. The only
takes it away so quick, so slowly.
yeah, there's not. It's just polishing it. It's basically just a polishing thing. The only thing that you definitely never want to do is that. You never want to have this leather spinning into the sharp blade because you will ruin that.
Sure.
Immediately, it'll just slice it up. It'll cut. It'll lose. Yeah. The other nice thing about this is it's a very safe tool. It's unlike a very fast spinning thing that can grab the knife and throw it. This is not going to grab it ever and throw it. So you have this here.
Could you see a demo?
What's that? Yeah.
Okay.
Come along there. That. And there. And once you see a little bit of stuff kind of coming on there, that's fine. That's showing that you're kind of doing something with it, and it's getting, because it's coming past the edge and it's coming on there, and you can look and see how it's polishing once you've done that.
So you're just like looking for a mirror finish, basically.
Basically, you can do that as much or as little as you want. It doesn't really matter.
But that's going to get rid of that wire bead.
It's getting rid of the wire edge, and it's also just polishing it to make it a sharper, smoother. The more you do it, the sharper it's going to get.
Okay.
And then I don't think we have anything down here to test it with. But,
Paper?
There's stuff in here pretty dull. The whole toolbox. So hopefully.
A good test is if you still get yellow pages delivered, I just keep them because I pull one out, and then if you can do that with hold it and slice the yellow page. Yeah, that's all I keep them for.
That's the only reason to keep the phone again.
Right, so,
we do have the internet now.
So you can slice it that way. A magazine, a glossy magazine, if you roll it in half and kind of hold it loosely and then just do that, and see if it grabs and cuts through the, I'm not doing a good example. Pretending this were some sort of a glossy magazine.
Shouldn't cut your sandpaper with your good knives.
I did not write. If you pretending this was a glossy magazine cover or anything, if you just came like that and were able to slice through it, that's you're done. So that it's that or taking a piece of the yellow paper or yellow pages and doing that. If you Another way that's really a fun example, but it's kind of it does waste a lot, is if you get it very sharp and you then take a roll of paper towels and you just kind of like cut what's called a cookie in forestry. So you cut the whole, like one slice, profile slice along the whole. Try to do that with a knife. It's actually quite hard and it tries to rip everything. But if you can just come in and slice off a very thin ring of an entire paper towel roll.
We'll have to get a roll of paper towel for that purpose.
Yeah, just to tuck it.
Alabama hobbies.
So let me pause there and see, are there questions about that?
So for the water, do you fill the water up every time, or is
Once you fill it up every time, and then you just take it down after you're done and take it off and empty it.
okay? So that's a per.
Yeah.
Thing.
We wouldn't want to leave this on. You don't have to do it per night, but
Okay.
but you can like work with it all day,
Okay.
and then be done and then take it off.
And then all the shavings, all the steel shavings are in there.
There's also a little magnet on the front.
Right.
To
There's
catch
a
the shavings.
yeah, by the way, this is actually really nice that they've added that on. But yeah, there's a little magnet that would catch the steel shavings. You can see it right here. Oh, it just came off. And then you'd use the scraper and scrape that out into the trash. After you've emptied the water out. The on and off is right here. It's fairly self-explanatory, I think. And you want to make sure that you're dipping the stone and you're getting that wet. The stone is wet. So when you first start this up, it will actually soak up a lot of water, and then you may have to put more water into it because this will dry out quickly, and then you'll just soak up more when you do that. So you have that. There's also, I don't know if it's on this or not. Did it have two little leg clips or the long knife attachment? What we see here is that's
That's all here.
This.
That's like a magnetic thing to attach it with.
Or is that just to hold on to that?
That's just a magnet that it clips onto.
Oh, okay, they have it that way. Right, because they changed this to be a non-magnetic surface.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, you can put that there and then click back to it.
Okay, let's do that.
The old ones, this was all magnetic, so you just put that. Let's see. Yeah. Questions first. Any other?
Two just random things where we have on the tourney base, so you can, if you wanted to go towards versus away from the blade, you can flip it around pretty easily. It was actually, I cut my arm when I was turning it before, stupidly. And the other thing is on the little angle meter thing, when you're changing the diameter, something that I forgot about was that the leather wheel is smaller, so you change the diameter on the measurer.
Yeah,
If you use it.
you actually don't even measure onto the.
Right. So if you're not measuring, it's not
so
a
you don't
problem.
measure. You can use this
Okay.
as you just put it up there and then kind of use that, but yeah, you wouldn't measure it.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's see. There's, like I said, if you ever are wanting to get into some interesting stuff, look through the book that came along with it. There has all sorts of jigs described in here, and how to do it. And just let me know, because I've got a lot of these. Small knife attachments, all the woodworking stuff. Yeah. So And
What's
then-
the transition from regular knife to small knife, and for
Oh, like-
purposes of the
like-
small jig?
Like that would be a like a small pocket Swiss Army knife.
Okay, like 2 inches
Knife.
something.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, because your 2.5 inch your 2.5 inch paring knife is totally fine in this.
With the regular. Okay,
Yeah.
perfect.
Yeah,
Perfect.
it's you use,
Very small knives. Then.
yeah, it's for the kind of thing that you could not even like get in here and grip it on, and I'd have to show it to you, but it sits in there.
Okay. Is there anything different with chisels rather than knives? Is it more or less the same thing? We just use
That's where it was. Yeah. Okay. So the difference with chisels and knives is that you don't do both sides. You're doing a chisel edge rather than a VH. So once you've raised the edge here, or even before when you're doing what's called lapping.
Yeah, you just like do you use sandpaper or just? Sure. Okay.
This is a flat edge.
Okay.
Turn it on, and then just hold it up
Yep.
against there.
Can you do that one more time?
Just
So
lap
just
the back.
Yeah, it just laps the back.
Okay.
So I'll use this, but you can you just take that and then bring it up and hold it up against flat against there, and it's going to take off that back edge and make that sharp.
Do you do that first or after you do the other side? It doesn't matter.
Once you've raised the wire edge, you can come in and do that, and that's how you just knock off that back edge.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then do you strop the back also? Does it matter?
At that point, it doesn't really matter. You probably can. You probably can just come back and like knock it down.
Yeah.
But you want to do that and then come in and knock it there and then. Yeah.
And next week I bring me home my chisel.
You're gonna ruin a bunch of them. So get some good.
Oh, I have a very bad set of chisels. I'll practice.
I mean, and this is the next thing I was going. I went to when I was first. What's that? Harbor Freight. No, actually, I went to the dollar store. And picked up,
That's a good idea.
Just picked up the dollar knives. There's some dollar knives at Target. You can get it in the dollar store. And just play with those.
That sounds like
Another good one that people talk about is to get yourself like ready. If you really want to like test your chops, is take an old hacksaw blade and see if you can turn it into a knife. Like just get to put an edge on a hacksaw blade. Then you can use this. I wouldn't suggest it. I've never been other things. You can just once you've sharpened it, just take it and kind of like do that, or on another stone or something like that to just dull it down again, and then you sharpen it up, practice again, and take a brick, run it all, cut a long brick a couple times. Well, it's a dollar knife.
No, I know.
And the thing is, the different types of metal. Once you again get into look, if you have a nice knife or something you want to look into, how hard is that metal, and what's the different? So surgical steel, for instance, is actually you'll find that on the dollar store knives, and that will eat away very quickly. That can you can really you'll see knives that lose their metal a lot faster than others, versus a really nice
Tori Hanzo.
yeah, or like a good Shun or a Miyabi or something like that is going to take a lot longer to work with, and even something like that might not work with that stone if you get into the that goes right there. So if you have a long knife and you're coming along here,
Okay.
you might get water on there. And it
Ah.
just takes the water back out here instead of into there. So if you have a long tool, a long planer blade, anything that extends,
It's just to catch drips.
it's just to catch drips.
Cool.
It's well designed tool.
This, if you're doing a knife, you hold it up like that, and you can hold it. You can hold it up to the. You can see where you're not making contact.
Right.
And you want to roll it along the whole thing, and make sure you're making contact. And then
There are little concavities.
yeah, and you can see there is like that has a
Yeah.
that's where the bolster is.
Yeah.